topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hi and welcome. Good to have you with us. Bill Martinez here. Great to have you along with us as we, take a look and think about a week this has been. The Israel-Hamas war continues. A debate happened this week in Miami, down to 5 candidates. Probably after this last debate, we probably should be down to 3. But as people have said repeatedly, why? Maybe they said, and why asked, why? Donald Trump clearly is the front runner. And even though you may have Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis as the next two, which are the top tier, Vivek and Tim Scott and Chris Christie, pretty much have a decision to make. And of course, the debate was in the audience were their donors. And so they could tell real quick. And I think they need to come to decision time to say, all right, it's time to do something else and, get out of the way. But meanwhile, Donald Trump continues very short distance away from where the debate was taking place. He was holding a rally with thousands of people, typical of Donald Trump. And, the comments that those that were on the debate stage, they seem to support time and again, the policies of Donald Trump. And why wouldn't they? Because those policies were working. I mean, 2.5 years or 2 years at least of misery here under Joe Biden, and the policies that he's enacted clearly are anti-American. They're not to serve the American people at large. And I know for some people that may be a bit entertaining, but look at the proof's in the pudding. The facts are there. I mean, on day one, he decides to take us out of being energy independent. I guess that was a bad thing. Being a job creator, that was a bad thing. So also having an opportunity for people to increase their wages must have been a bad thing. Now, people are working multiples of jobs and doing everything they can, to try to keep up with the cost of living. Inflation, Bidenomics is not working. It's an absolute disaster. Maybe for some people, the people who are very wealthy, because the divide between the very wealthy and the very poor is widening. The middle class is getting decimated in this whole process. I don't have to tell you that. I mean, you realize that every time you reluctantly pull out your credit card, which is overtaxed anyway, to pay for gas or pay for groceries. And as I keep saying, to you and our radio audience as well, is that this is not your fault. You didn't do this. This is being done to you. This is being done to us by the Democratic Party. And it's clear that the left wing of the Democratic Party, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and not broad brush this and just say it's everybody in the Democratic Party, because I believe there's still reasonable people within the party that believe in the founding principles of America. We may come at it a different angle, but at the end of the day, we arrive at a similar destination point. Now, there's some divisions there. I understand it. You talk about abortion. I mean, clearly there's a divide, and we may never ever get that together. But that is because when it comes to abortion, as we're finding out, this is a personal issue. This shouldn't be something, and never was to be something that the federal government should dictate to people. They say it's my body, it's my reproductive rights. I agree. It is yours, and it's your choice. It is your decision. Now, in much the same way that the word of God says, look at what stands before you today is life and death. And with those options, The Bible is real quick to tell you, choose life. That's the best choice. But unless you have the level of maturity, if I can put it in those terms, I'm not trying to insult anybody here, but unless you really appreciate what God was telling us in choosing life. I mean, after all, we're talking God Almighty, the one who created all of us here, the one who says he has plans for us, that not for evil, but for good, that it would go well for us. He wants it to go well for us, even though he knows that we're in a fallen world and we're having to deal with, the reality of a fallen world. But still, he's cheering us on. He cheers us on to the degree that he sends his son to bring us back home, to save us. But it all comes back to that issue of, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose life, or are you going to choose death? If you choose life, then it alters your worldview in such a way that everything that you think about, everything that you do, everything that you wish for others is about life. That becomes a defining principle. But if you choose death, then the same way, everything that you think, everything that you do reflects death. And clearly what's happening in our culture today is that death is more pronounced than ever again. It's all around us, not only in the wars that we see, some, and oh yeah, by the way, let me clear out something. I maybe have told you the wrong number. I don't know how I come up with this. It was kind of silly, because I think I made a mistake in saying there was something like 200 and, over 200 wars, being reported. 32 is the number. I don't know how I got over 200, because there's not that many countries. I mean, it would really be a mess. But regardless, 30, at least at last count, 32 wars around the world, and many you don't know about. They're not getting the coverage like what's happening in Israel or what's happening in Ukraine with Russia. But there are wars that are happening. And we were told that there would be wars and rumors of wars. But right now, there's the reality of war, and there's the reality of life and death. So take a look at that. I mean, if experience defines preference, what would you much rather have? To me, it's a no-brainer, but that's me and that's my choice, just like it is your choice. And my encouragement to you is that you would choose life, because if we chose life, then there's alternatives. Like some of the guests that we've had on this week talked about, why not abortion? Why can't we make abortion much easier here in the United States of America? Why is it that families have to go to Russia or even China or some other country to go and adopt a child at an incredible amount of money? We're talking $30,000, $50,000 by the time you pay off everybody to go and to be able to pay for an adoption overseas. But yet, we have plenty of American children here and potential children. But this culture, this mindset that we've bought into, that looks at children as disposable. I mean, it really is heartbreaking. And for people that want to hold some sort of moral ground, about what's happening in the world and the brutality in that, it's like, how do you hold to some moral ground when you're disrespecting life? I mean, America, out of its birth, was Judeo-Christian. We believed in life over death. We were celebrating life, much like, the Jewish culture, l'chaim, life, because everything that connects us, everything that fulfills us, everything that represents freedom is living. It's alive. Just like Jesus, he's alive out of the tomb. Again, all a reflection. But if we want to think in terms of death and destruction, all these things that we've been conditioned, as growing up, for those of our children who grew up watching video games that we seemed were all so innocent and just entertaining and kept them busy because, after all, we were busy. We had to take care of, if it wasn't taking care of the household, it was taking care of, our jobs that we had to perform. So our kids had to stay busy. That supposedly they were being, kept out of trouble. But what kind of trouble did we leave them to? We left them to their own devices, unsupervised, to watch and participate in these games and to be exposed to things that it just wasn't appropriate. It was way too early. And now here we are. Our kids are being exposed to all kinds of sexual grooming and perversion. I mean, weird stuff, right? I mean, I see these pictures and, they have these, drag queens teaching kids. I mean, third graders, second graders. Well, what are we trying to tell these kids? I mean, this is bizarre. And it's like, where are the voices to say, no, this is nuts. I mean, I understand they're rising up, but there should be such a concerted scream over this craziness. But there's accommodation. There's accommodation, for political appeasement and some sort of compromise. But, and I'm not saying compromise shouldn't happen, but there's a time to compromise. There's times not to. It's kind of like Nikki Haley, the other night during the debate. She's looking at the numbers saying, hey, we got to be real. We have to have, 60 senators, in order to deal with abortion. And we don't have 60 senators, so let's not talk about it. The other thing I thought that was appropriate, she kept challenging the Democratic Party, saying, well, what's your line? What do you say? When is it okay, to kill a child? Where's it have to be at? Is it at 26 weeks? Is it up to the moment of conception? Well, Hakeem Jeffries, I think, pretty much made the announcement here this week in concert with the Democrats and the Democratic Party that they want no restrictions. Women, I guess, and we'll say men as well, because it took two. Although, men have been, set aside on this. And I believe in setting and ignoring, men in the proposition. It's that, yeah, it may be your body, but your body didn't do this alone. You weren't the virgin. You're not the Virgin Mary. Okay. It required a male to consummate, this conception. It's the way it works still, believe it or not. But, so the argument about it's my body. Okay, well, all right. It is, no doubt. I'm not arguing that. It's your body. It's your responsibility. So why is it that you wanted to, be mandated on a federal level? And I believe the motivation for that is it's all about money. It's not about the people. I mean, the reason that the groundswell of Dobbs came about was because of 49 years of murder, 49 years of death. And what did it do to our culture? The women who had experienced it, whose bodies, you could say unintentionally, regardless, but the result was the consequence of an abortion was, in too many cases, their reproductive rights. They exercised their reproductive right, and guess what? They can't reproduce anymore because of the damage of the abortion. And you say, oh, Bill, that's rare. That's a rare exception. Well, it's a rare exception unless it happens to you, right? But that's the case. And these women were talking about what happened to them. How many women died because of an abortion? Oh, we can't talk about that. I got to hide those numbers, We can't know the whole truth. But what they can't stop is the testimony and the experience of women who went through thinking, oh, it's just abortion, it's nothing, it's meaningless. It's like a little tumor is all that you're cutting out. Well, when was the last time that you ever fretted over a tumor having been removed from your body? When was the last time that you were woken up at 3:00 in the morning with this horror of conscience that said, oh my God, I just killed, I killed a living, I would have had a child right now. My child would have been 7 years old right now, but he's no more because I chose my reproductive right. It's your right. It's your right to do that. But your right and responsibility, in my humble opinion, alone and along with that, are the consequences that go with that. And I don't say that cold-heartedly. I say that with empathy and compassion, because I've been around it myself. And I've talked to too many people. When you're talking to them about this issue and the shame and guilt that comes upon them, and the heartbreak in the realization that, my God, my child would have been 10 years old today, or 14, or as I'm talking with a Hollywood director of a movie, and as this topic came up, I was looking at my notes, and when I looked up, I saw tears rolling down his eyes, and he told me, he goes, Bill, my son would have been 18. What do you do? I mean, I just want to reach out and hug people and say, look, I can only imagine what you are enduring and what is going on in your mind and heart right now. But this, I want you to know, that we serve a loving God. And no matter what you may have done and what reality you've come to realize what you have done, God is there eagerly waiting to forgive you and restore you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you will forever forget that you had an abortion or were involved in abortion. But what it does mean is that you know in your hearts of hearts that it is settled as far as your relationship with God. He will forgive you. And that is, that's the resolution. That's the remedy of that. And so what's happened is, for the women particularly, and there's been some men, who have been kept out of this. I have a dear friend who got his girlfriend pregnant while they were in high school. And in order, knowing that he was going to be a father, he had to be responsible, he gets a job, and he got a job in the military. And while he was in the military, his father, the father of his wife, of his girlfriend, said, "No, there's no way. You're too young. You can't do this." And he literally took her, to a clinic and aborted the baby without the father's knowledge, without his support and acceptance. And can you imagine how crushing it was? And even to this day, how crushing it has been, for him, in realizing they since, by the way, they since got married. And I think they have like 7 or 8 kids, but they know that they should have had one more. And this is the heartbreak that as a male he carries. And there's lots of stories on the male side, but we don't hear about it. But what I'm saying is that was part and parcel of the groundswell that happened, the organic response to 49 years of death in this country because of Roe v. Wade, a humongous lie. And so you got 49 years of testimony from women. They're not doctors, but they're mothers. They're women who are, by their very nature, are nurturers. They would, in their right minds, never think in a million years that, oh my God, I'm just going to kill my child. It's not even conceivable. But what's happened is our culture has become very calloused and very casual. And we've let go of how significant life is. That's why I said before, everything you think, everything you do, everything that controls your very being, it's either life or death. We're either promoting life or we're promoting death. And for the women who have experienced, and as I say, some men, 49 years of the horror of abortion, I say it is the horror of abortion, because although there may be some people that are just, they've determined in their hearts, they've made up their own mind that, hey, that was my choice. I celebrate that choice today. I'm proud of that choice. Hey, it's your right. And just as much as you have that right to feel that way, the other segment of our community, of our world, for this matter, it's not just Americans, around the world, same thing is going on. The women and the men have the right to feel as they feel, that, oh my God, the truth is that I killed my child, and would-be grandparents, aching because they realized, oh my goodness, I could have could have another grandchild here, and he's no more, she's no more. It's again, your mindset and the actions you take differ tremendously. They're not even close. There's no gray part of this. It's you either are for life or you're for death. And so we've become a culture of death, this generation. And the damage that we've done in embracing death over life has been astronomical. And only by the grace and his forgiveness of God can we be redeemed. And this is the opportunity while you still have breath in you to be able to turn to the Father and say, look, help me understand. Help me understand. Answer the questions that I have. And help me be a person who honors life, because I can see. Or even if you can't see, you can go to God and say, help me see. And I think this is why in the stories in the Bible, we see where Jesus, gave sight to the blind. And there were people there he talked about. He talked about the religious people that, was sad because they claimed to see, but they're more blind than a bat, really. And it is the condition of humanity when it's left to its own devices. So this issue of abortion, we have to move it out of the realm of the emotional and be able to look at it from a practical standpoint. And my prayer is, even for women today who are still considering death over life, that they would understand that there are options. I mean, we have, we have many centers, and one in particular that I support here in Florida, that are for life, and they are for life through the whole process. In working, if it's a single mom who's pregnant, can you imagine? I mean, what have I done? What am I going to go through? How do I tell my parents what's going on? The father has left. He's left the building. I'm left here to myself, 17 years old. I mean, they run the whole gamut, the whole stories. But these centers are there to help, come alongside, no judgment, just saying, look we're going to support you and your child and your decision, whatever you do, whether you choose to raise this child, on your own, with or without family support, or if you choose to put the child up for adoption. There are positive alternatives here. And there's no doubt that, the whole choice and decision is such. I think the easy choice and the quick choice, because we are a rather expedient-minded culture, right? I say, only this culture can stand in front of a microwave and yell, hurry up. Things don't happen fast enough. But there's a lot of problems with speed and in hurrying. And if we don't pause and take the time necessary to make the right choice that is fruitful for you as a young woman, and what will serve you for the rest of your life, whatever you choose. I mean, God will be there with you. And you listen to the stories of women who said, I don't know how I was going to do it, but I did it. And you hear these success stories of single moms who are just, I mean, they're superstars. They're superheroes for what they've done. And then also for the moms who said, you know what, I can't do this. And I'm going to put my child up for adoption. A friend of mine, he is, it's incredible. I mean, his beginning wasn't good. I mean, he was conceived as a result of a rape. Okay. And of course, one of the exceptions, right? That many people seem to be comfortable with. But his mother had such a mindset for life that she set aside the rape. And she said later on, I couldn't see the two wrongs making a right. And, that is an incredible, courageous state of mind, and an unusual person, male or female, to be able to separate those issues. And she decided to carry the child, through birth. By the way, he's very healthy. He's a great guy. He is an award-winning artist. He has a family, I think, of 4 himself. He was adopted by a family that I think they had like 13 kids. And there are many stories like that. And yes, to make that kind of choice and to say, I'm going to turn my child over. And there's different ways to handle adoption to where you can still be a part and let the child be aware that you are his mom. And there's procedures and ways to handle this. I mean, it has come a long way. But if you don't investigate it and you think, okay, I'm just going to, kick my child, my baby out the door and have nothing to do ever again with that child's life, there's you need to hear more of the stories and the truth of what's going on. So all this to say that what's happened in our country has been a result of experience. Experience defines preference. We've had 50 years of experience of death and, the murder of over 100 million babies. They say quickly, they've been saying for a long time 60 million, but that's only those that have been aborted in the traditional sense. Of course, chemical abortion, the scientists say that's another 40%. So that puts us, well over 100 million and counting. And the whole chemical abortion issue, I mean, how crazy is this? I mean, as if regular abortions aren't dangerous. Now you're going to give a young girl a couple of pills left on her own in her apartment, sitting on a toilet and expelling the baby. I mean, how do you unsee that? How do you deal with that? And not to mention, the complication. You're doing this by yourself. There's no doctor there. There's no nurse there as you're having a chemical abortion. But, the false narrative, again, everything about death, there's so many lies entangled around it, right? So just as there were lies about abortion, there's lies about chemical abortion. Oh, they say, it's like taking Tylenol. No big whoop, right? No big whoop until you're in the middle of it, cramping and wondering what the heck is going on with your body. And then it vacates and expels the baby that was growing in you. And you're there. No doctor, but you've got a fetus floating in your toilet. I don't know. I mean, this is traumatic, and it's the reality. And, we wouldn't want anybody to go through that. We wouldn't want our children, our daughters, our sons to experience that. But this is the world in which we live in. And people are celebrating, abortion as if it's some sort of victory. It really is. It really is sad. And I believe it is at the risk of this Judeo-Christian culture, allegedly, that believes less and less in God and has abandoned this idea of life and death. I mean, seriously, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, if we don't grab a hold on this, I mean, this has gone way too long. And, and I'm just saying is that if we do not connect with God and turn to God, who says, if my people who are called by my name, okay, and that's where this is the start and this is the hinge. It's not everybody, because not everybody has ears to hear. It's only those who are called by his name. And God is saying to those, if you consider yourself to be called by his name, listen up, and do your part, that as much as it would count on us, that life would reign and the death would be less and less. We're in a fallen world. And as we look at the signs that are happening, the war in Israel, I get it. Some people think, okay, well, Bill, what are you so concerned about? I mean, the way I look at it, these are the last of the last days, and what will be, so to speak. See, but I don't think that's the Father's heart. I think we've been warned about what is going on and what will happen, so that we would be in concert, that we would be we'd be connected with God and his purposes, and that we're serving the greater good. Because who's to know if that neighbor that lives, that you've known, for 20 years, or maybe it's just a year, who's to say that, but for you, that person is saved and brought into the kingdom, and they're able to appreciate the new life that you've been appreciating. See, but it starts with us, those who are called by his name. I think, again, as I said earlier, this is a time where we have to think better, we have to do better, and we have to be better. Okay. And it's not so much that, it's like, we have to have such a radical change. Just think in terms of just thinking, doing, and being. I had a mentor at one time, and he broke this down, because I played baseball as I was growing up as a kid. And he knew that I would appreciate the mathematics of this. And we were talking one day about the difference between a professional baseball player and particularly one who was an offensive baseball player when he went to bat. And he said, you know the difference between a good baseball player and an exceptional baseball player? And I said, I don't know. What is it? He says, it's about 5%. I said, really? 5%? He says, yeah. He says, what it comes down to, it's one more hit in 20 at bats. In the 20 opportunities that they get to go up to bat, the outstanding baseball players offensively get one more hit than all the others in 20 bats. Think about it. 5%. See, and I think, and I looked at that in terms of my life. Could I do 5% better? Could I be a better husband 5% of the time? Could I be a better father 5%? Could I, at my work, could I be a better leader at 5%, or a better employee at 5%? I mean, come on, that's attainable, but not if you don't consider it, right? So I challenge you, to consider this, and I hope that it blesses you, because I believe God revealed this to me for a reason, and I share it with you. Again, nothing dramatic, but when you think about God, yeah, there's a lot of awesome things, but some of the most powerful things are very simple. You choose life over death. Okay. If you have any questions, right away, God says, life, you want to go. Here's the choice. It's what stands before you. Choose life or death. Now, life is what you want. So we're going to focus on life. So, what your thoughts? Can you do a little bit better with your thoughts? Catch yourself. And there's no question. I'll guarantee you, as soon as you say, okay, you know what, Bill, I'm going to do that. I'm going to think better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. As soon as you do that, guess what? You're going to get attacked. And some of the thoughts you're going to, oh man, what am I, because that's what happens. As soon as you determine that's what you want to do, you're going to have antithetical forces. Well, guess what? That's like going to the gym, and you need to look at it that way, because you go to the gym and what do? You get opposition in lifting weights. That's what builds up muscle. So it's the same way. You're going to have opposition to the thoughts, to good thoughts, to better thoughts. So get ready, because that's going to build you up. So what do you think today? Think about what you'll think about 30 days from now. That how much better you'll be in going through that exercise. And the things that, that you do, you'll find yourself, again, you'll do things like Paul said, the Apostle Paul said, the things I want to do, I don't do. The things I do. It is the paradox of man. It's the battle we go through. It's okay. But we want to honor God, and we honor God by thinking a little bit better, doing better, and being better. It is attainable, but it isn't if you're not even thinking about it. Okay. So I would encourage you to think about it. Now, all this came up because, earlier in the week, if you joined us, and if you missed it, you need to check it out, is the discussion we had with Dr. Robert Jeffers. He's the pastor of a church in Texas. He is a prolific author, best-selling author, and his latest book's called The 10. And you've heard me say this before, is that, we need to get back to first principles. In my business experience, I discovered that when a business is not doing well, a good CEO, a good leader of an organization would remind everybody and kind of pause. First of all, I'd pause, say, look we're off course here. We're not doing as well as we're doing because you're in business, to increase business, to make money, do all these positive things, for one another. And right now we're not. We're losing money. We're losing employees. And this has been going on for a while. A good leader will say, when did that change? Let's go back and figure out where we made the wrong turn. What happened? What happened in the culture that shifted that is producing this kind of results? Kind of like in this country, where we are right now. This is why leadership is so key, to be able to hit the pause button, talk about hitting the pause button, and say, okay, where did we make the wrong turn? What can we do? Well, Pastor Jeffers has done this for believers. Okay, we hear about the 10 Commandments. His book is titled The 10, Experience God's Blessing in Rediscovering the 10, How to Live and Love in a World that has lost its way. We need to get back to first principles. The 10 Commandments, you say, oh, Bill, how basic is that? Oh, but how wonderful. And you think, and you may think casually, oh, well, Bill, I'm pretty good. I keep the 10 Commandments. A lot of people will say that. My good friend Ray Comfort will ask people, hey, what do you think is going to happen when you die? Are you going to go to heaven? Well, yeah, I think I'm going to go to heaven. Why do you think you're going to go to heaven? Well, I kind of keep the 10 Commandments, kind of keep the 10 Commandments. Okay. We fool ourselves into thinking that, somehow we're going to make God into our man, our own image and our own idea. This isn't Burger King. Okay. It's not McDonald's. This is God himself. This is a spiritually significant consideration here. We have to follow what God has said. And the 10 Commandments is part of the path that gets you there, to realize that there are guardrails. There are reasonable expectations. And when you look at what happened to our country, and going back, let's just go back to when the 10 Commandments were taken out of the hallways of schools across the country. How's that working for us? How's that working for schools? Can you not see the correlation of it? So, Dr. Jeffers has blessed us by reminding us of the 10 Commandments. Get back to first principles and see what a difference that would make. Well, we got to wrap things up. Again, I can't thank you enough for your faithfulness, for tuning in. And, and hopefully, because our goal is that we would bless you, that as a result of tuning in on any one of these shows and the guests that we have, is that you would be enlarged, that you would be encouraged, that you would be blessed. As my old mentor would say to me back in my radio days in Los Angeles, he'd say, Bill, your job is to elicit a positive emotional response. And I hope that this has done this in whatever topic, whatever guest that we've had, that it spurred you on in such a way. And by the way, I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to drop me a line, I'll give you my personal email and you can connect with me direct. It's Bill, real simple, Bill@BillMartinezLive.com, Bill@BillMartinezLive.com. Love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being with us. And I appreciate you being a part of the show. And until next time, may God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you his peace. Thanks again for being with us. God bless.